A shocking press conference just happened where over 120 accusers have joined forces against Diddy. We have Christopher Melcher here to break it down. Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signore. Steph, Lewis, Kim, we're all here, but we're all excited because now Christopher Melcher's in the building. Welcome back, sir. How you doing?
Pretty good. Glad to be here.
This is a tough one, man. I'm glad you're here. I know you got to read about it. You didn't watch it directly, but I want to share a quick portion just so people can get the gist of it. Overall, though, Christopher, it was 120 accusers that this Busby law firm is mentioning. And you had told me this, but Busby law firm's a legit firm, has done a lot of successful cases over the years. And he seems to be taking this quite seriously, so much so, in fact, there's now a Diddy hotline. You can see it behind him up there in the big red letters for anybody who's wants to call in. Apparently, they've already gotten thousands of calls they're trying to get through, but right now 120 cases they will be filing separately over the next 30 days. And horrific stuff they sort of alluded to. Obviously, we'll get those details as those cases come forward. But Christopher, before we even get your thoughts, I want to share this bit because this was pretty shocking. Also shocking, we just made a video. 25 of those 125 were minors. This is the first time we've heard that where it's not all adults. We'll come to that in a second. But first, let's talk about this here in this video.
The day will come when we will name names other than Sean Combs, and there's a lot of names. It's a long list already. And of course, I already know who some of these individuals are, but because of the nature of this case, we're going to make damn sure that we're right before we do that. But the names that we're going to name, assuming that our investigators confirm and corroborate what we've been told, are names that will shock you. These are individual cases. There are indeed other perpetrators involved. They will be revealed when that particular individual case is ready to be filed. They already know who they are. And I'm talking here about not just the cowardly but complicit bystanders. That is, those people that we know watched this behavior occur and did nothing. And I'm talking about the people that participated, encouraged it, egged it on. They know who they are. I call them the facilitators of foul play, willing participants in vile conduct. As we identify them, each will be part of this case as defendants. These defendants will not only include individuals, but would also include corporate entities who ultimately profited off of this culture and behavior. I'm looking at banks, pharmaceutical companies, hotels. We know that many of these individuals were paid cash. We know that many of these individuals involved, whether they were the ones being assaulted and abused or they're witnessing, anyone who was in the room and watched it happen but made no effort to stop it, any venue or venue owner who was aware of what was going on but failed to stop it, any individual or entity who knew about the conduct and benefited from it but did nothing to report it or stop it, and any individual or entity who covered it up or helped cover it up. These people who know who they are should just come forward now. I would imagine, as we speak here, there are a myriad of people who are very nervous. You can't hide skeletons in the closet forever. I would expect there are many people out there right now who are desperately searching their memories as they delete their texts and data. Now, although these are, in fact, individual cases, there is a common theme.
He goes in, there's a lot more, the theme being that he would bring them in with drinks, lace those drinks. If you didn't drink said drinks, you were kicked out of the party. Once they took the drink and sort of passed out, they had their way with these people. And that's the theme that was happening ongoing. But so, Christopher, I want to get your reactions, but I was taken by that part where he's really calling it out there and putting it out like, we've all suspected that there's a lot of celebrities and people that are nervous. He's saying, oh, we know who you are. Don't worry. We're getting there. We're coming to you. You better come forward now. What is your reaction? What do you think of that sort of way he's doing it?
Well, sure. So first of all, Tony Busby is a serious lawyer, and he's a very skilled trial attorney. So this is, not one of these kind of ambulance chasing lawyers. This guy's the real deal in terms of being able to persuade a jury. He's also been very successful financially. And you could see videos about him. I'm not really a big fan of how ostentatious, his lifestyle is, because that always makes me wonder about a lawyer not, having that much money. But this guy has a large lifestyle. Now, the thing is, this is not a criminal case. It's a civil case that he would be bringing, 120 separate civil actions. Some people have talked earlier about, oh, it's a class action. No, it's not a class action. That involves, like say there's a plane crash and a whole bunch of people die in one incident, or they're injured by a product, let's say. So there are certain cases where there's a bunch of victims injured in one incident could potentially have that class certified and it's one lawsuit. This is not like that. Even though there's this common theme that he's alleging, each individual plaintiff would have to file their case, 120 different cases. Now, it's not criminal, it's civil. That is a huge difference to keep in mind. On the indictment, right now, we only see Diddy indicted, meaning he's the only defendant that we know about that's criminally charged. There could be other criminal charges out there already that we do not know about or we haven't connected. I would cite to Matthew Perry, if those of us who had followed that case, we know when those indictments dropped against various folks involved in that, there had previously been a indictment against the ketamine queen, but it wasn't relatable to Matthew Perry. Okay. So there could already be some cases out there against people that are pending, but we just haven't connected them up to it, or they might charge those other folks later in the criminal case. On a civil, the standard is much lower. Being present while a crime is being committed and failing to intervene is not a crime unless you have a duty to intervene. People who have a duty to intervene would be like a police officer, mandatory reporter would have to report it. But generally speaking, as horrible as it sounds, like we can watch a crime happen, do nothing and not report it, and it's generally not a crime. And that's significant because if people were watching and not participating or facilitating, it's not a crime. Horrible, not a crime. But in a civil case, the standard's lower. And so those folks who maybe watched but didn't participate or facilitate could be dragged in. Now, Busby was trying to make that distinction, saying, hey, I'm not just going after people who were in the room. Somebody would have had to have done something. But then he kind of broadens it to saying like, well, hey, if it was in the hotel, I'm going to sue the hotel too. Okay, did the hotel really know what was going on? Maybe they did. So he's going to sue the pants off of everybody. And one of the reasons why, and we've been thinking about this is, Diddy's a wealthy guy and he has, catalog and assets and ongoing streams of income. But I got to think he is moving those assets out of his hands, and he's been working on that for quite some time because he knows this is coming down on him. So family members, other companies, this money is being out. And by the time these cases would ever go forward to a trial, which generally would have to be after the criminal case is over. So we're talking maybe it could be on hold for a couple years. By the time they would actually go to trial and get a verdict against Diddy, Diddy may have nothing. And so they're going to have to then enforce that and try and find his assets along with the other couple hundred people that are going to be going after him for the same money. So that's why he's going to expand this to saying, well, if it happened in a hotel, I'm going to sue the hotel. If drugs were provided, I'm going to go after whoever provided those drugs. Whoever else facilitated, I'm going to go after them. And then there may be a shakedown element to it saying, well, hey, if some celeb happened to be walking by or being in the room, he's going to sue them too.
So should they be nervous? Is this something in a civil case that actually could cause them damage? And I guess the other question I have is, if you're repping a celebrity, is it better to come forward at this point if you know you might be complicit in one of these things? Or is this, you don't want to call his bluff and you want to sort of wait until you know they have you? You know what I mean?
Yeah, this is very difficult. So sure, anyone should be nervous. Even a false allegation against you could be extraordinarily damaging. And we all know from following these stories, people read the headlines. They don't necessarily read the stories. Allegations that are made kind of stick and are very difficult to undo later on. So yes, people should be nervous about getting caught up in this horrible web. Now, if somebody's in the crosshairs, They're probably going to get a demand letter. And so what'll happen is that plaintiff's attorney, Busby in this case, would probably send a letter to that person saying, here are our concerns. This is the information that those concerns are based upon, and, kind of work with us or we're going to sue you. And then the celeb's going to have a decision to make at that point because they know it's going to happen. And the classic advice is say nothing and let it work out in the court. But more people are now pivoting towards getting in front of the story and probably coming out there and making a statement and saying, yes, I went to a Diddy party, but these things didn't happen in my presence. And I got to caution people to think about the difference between a Diddy party that he's famously known for giving with lots of celebrities
the white party.
there.
Yeah, exactly. There's tiers to the party, it seems.
Well, exactly. A freak off. And I know the freak offs were allegedly recorded for his own sick purposes. But the white party or something like that, you have lots of people in attendance, lots of people with cameras recording this. If freak offs were happening during a white party, we would have all seen video of that by now. So there's a difference. There's got to be a difference between the regular party and the freak off. So whether celebs got involved in the freak off, I have no idea. But if they were there, they're gonna really pay the price for this, at least reputationally, because again, it may not have been a crime, it may not even be anything civilly that they could be properly held accountable for, but just morally being present. Unless they have a reputation as a party goer and abusive type person, if they're like a normal kind of reputation, it is going to be extraordinarily damaging. And if one of them is going to get caught up on it, they're going to be best served by getting in front of it and saying, yeah, I was there. This is what happened. I'm embarrassed by what happened. Here's what I'm doing to kind of rectify this, kind of acknowledge the harm that was caused, blah, blah, blah. Standard apology should be issued.
Well, and then the other question of just the fact that now there's minors involved, we have to be careful how we say it. But now that with the minors in this, we asked the question, do the feds know? And he says he doesn't think they know of everything, but obviously he's going to make sure that they have access to anybody. That does change this case, no? I mean, there's also talk about it going global. They're now putting people out in the UK and other areas in London, for example, where he partied a lot. International, minors involved, that takes us like 10 steps up, no?
Oh, of course. And I got to think there's going to be sharing of information, and it's usually a one-way street from the plaintiffs to the prosecutors in what could be these other jurisdictions. So, that just brings it to an even sadder level if that's what's going on. We'll also have to watch out for the risk of the pile-on effect. So, when allegations are made that are based in truth by certain victims, then of course everyone else, who wants a payday could potentially jump onto that and say, yeah, that happened to me also. So there's that'll have to be difficult. And Busby, like I say, he's a very smart and experienced lawyer, and he mentioned about having investigators. He does need to test these things, because if he brings in one claim that is false, that's going to taint all the other claims that he's bringing. So
I was going to ask that because it's a lot, right? It's not good to just have a number and just fill them all in, which some might say has happened in other cases. In this, you ought to be careful, because exactly if you have one bad apple in that batch, then it sort of sours out all of them, no?
It absolutely does. And that's something, if I were one of the 120, clients, that I would be very concerned about. And what we've seen, because I'm in this world, is that when victims are selected because they're victims. And I hate to say that, but it's a predator-prey kind of relationship. And if Diddy did these things, he's a predator, and he would identify people who he can take advantage of, people who are weak, people who are not going to be believed. And so these people who have now been victimized by him can make a terrible witness, because maybe they have stuff in their background that, kind of is a little bit rough, and maybe convictions or they've had other problems. Okay. And again, that's why they were potentially selected by him. And now when they're coming in, making their case, are they really going to be believed? And are people going to, and that's why people were quiet for a long time, because, and people who made allegations, like, look at Cassie. I mean, he came out and said she was looking for a payday. So there's going to be a problem. And if I were one of the 120, I would want to know, like, hey, Busby, make sure you don't have people in here that are making claims that are doing so falsely, because it is going to impact my credibility and my claim.
Yeah, so we shall see. So up to the next steps, I mean, this is clearly not good for Diddy. He must be sweating off this. His lawyer can't be loving this either. This is going to make the case for him tremendously difficult and more expensive, I imagine, to cover this.
Well, sure. I mean, how do they pick a jury? They're going to pick a jury, and they're going to be jury selection. Who hasn't heard about this story at this point? And so that's going to be difficult in jury selection to say, hey, have you formed any opinions about this? And there are people out there that don't know. They don't follow the news, they don't watch anything, and maybe those will be the jurors. But I think that this level of scrutiny now, 120 people and growing, and now you're, internationally potentially, there's going to be a lot of people who know about this. It's going to be difficult to serve on a jury.
Well, I think you would attest, this is only getting started. There's probably even more that are going to come forward through this hotline and elsewhere. If this man's doing it to this many people, chances are there's probably a lot more in his wake that are starting to come forward. Do you disagree?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, it's kind of hard to think about these numbers, but I guess if he's doing it for so long and there's multiple participants in each freak off, I'm just kind of going through my head thinking, how do we get to 120? But I guess
it is a lot.
Yeah,
scary.
It's a lot of
and to
freak-offs.
feel and to hear now that men, women, and minors is really disturbing and horrific to hear, and takes us to a whole nother thing. So we will keep you posted. Make sure, if you haven't already, you hit that subscribe button, hit the bell for alerts. Make sure you're part of the squad. You should have just gotten an alert right now for other videos. So when you get those alerts, hit the like, leave a comment. Make sure to support Mr. Melcher, as well as the whole crew who's here. We're going to talk to them live. If you're still watching, don't go anywhere. Make sure to support that. You can't see their faces for some weird reason. Support Steph is back. Lewis, my man. Steph the alternate, Lewis at Nerd Report. It's Kim, who called in earlier, so brave with her story. We love them all. This is the whole crew. Don't miss a video. Support them all and subscribe to Christopher Melcher on Twitter.